My name is Niklas Nikolajsen, and I am the CEO and Geschäftsführer at Bitcoin Suisse AG in Zug, Switzerland. Our company is a professional financial service provider and intermediary in the field of crypto finance. So we work with currencies like so many other financial intermediaries, hedge funds and asset managers also in Zug do. But we have a special focus on crypto assets, of which Bitcoin is the most well-known. I read the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto in 2010, where he cracked wide open this approach of having decentralized tokens. And I was extremely fascinated, and I have always had a keen interest in money, finance, and also, of course, software technologies. So I decided that I wanted to work with this one way or another. But that was back before you could look in the newspaper and look at job ads for the non-existing crypto financial sector. So I had to go and make something for myself. And if you invest a lot of effort in being an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you know that yourself, you might as well do it on as firm a foundation as possible, because it would be very sad to invest so many years and sacrifices only to find that you were in a jurisdiction that will pull the carpet away from under you. And since I feel myself very much as a European, in Europe I thought that Switzerland would be the right place to go on such a venture. It took me 2 years of living and working in Switzerland at a major Swiss bank before I could actually found Bitcoin Swiss together with partners, I should add. But leading up to that whole thing, I mean, the choice of Switzerland was very clear to me, simply because it was like a geopolitically safe jurisdiction with access to the European market, highly skilled labor, business-friendly environment. I would even go as far as to say very business-friendly environment. And there were other possibilities worldwide. Singapore would spring to mind, even Hong Kong, but certainly also City of London. But what really made my decision was that I knew that in the City of London, we would, as a new sector in finance, never make an impact in probably almost even in my lifetime, because of the sheer size of finance there and how little a part of it we still are. Whereas in Switzerland, I thought that here we are talking about a smaller jurisdiction where you can actually also, to a great degree on a local level, influence things, and where you can get to talk directly to the regulators and the banks and be taken seriously even as a small entrepreneur. So, and then it's just a beautiful place to live, right? I mean, I like London, and this weekend in London is great, but living inside London, if you have a family, children, so forth, maybe not. In the beginning of last month, we started delivering payment gateway services to Stadt Zug, and that is the town in which we live. They being the first public entity in the world which would accept Bitcoin as a means of payment. So I would say that alone is just one measure of things that would probably have been a little more difficult other places. But also from the regulatory side, I think the FINMA has taken the topic of crypto finance and Bitcoin seriously from the beginning, and have progressively worked to build a regulatory framework that is very clear. And the same thing with the tax authorities here in Zug earlier this year. And I think we posted them 16 specific written questions on how do you handle taxes in terms of Bitcoin in these and those aspects. And they gave precise written answers back and in days, whereas this would probably have prompted a tax department in any other country to not know what they would say, except don't do anything at the moment, we are thinking. We had to post a question at some point to the BaFin in Germany, that's the German FINMA, in terms of our rules of engagement vis-a-vis German clients and so forth. I think it took 1 month before they acknowledged that we had posted the questions to them, and then a further 10 months to answer them. And it was a few simple questions. And in that time, what do? Do you suspend all activity, hurting your business, and just wait? Or do you go out on a limb, assuming that you are in the right, maybe with a legal opinion? Do you take that risk? If our whole existence would have to be in that way, then of course developing a business would be much more complicated. So yes, certainly I think that Switzerland has an excellent jurisdiction, not only for fintech or blockchain technology, but in a very large number of areas. Bitcoin, which is also a blockchain application, is a token which has taken a role of a kind of internet money. And I think this topic is very frightening to banks. What does this mean in terms of AML? What does it mean in terms of regulation? Who are all these new actors popping up in Wild Western style all over the world? We've seen many of the big corporations. They were not as professional as they should have been. There's been major cracks in trading places, and the whole thing has made Swiss banks, who are perhaps more conservative than banks in other jurisdictions, very skeptical of the whole sector. And I know that if you work with crypto finance in Switzerland, and this is of the summer of 2016, you will not get a Swiss banking relationship. And that is, of course, very hurtful to our entire business. We'll have to bank abroad, we'll have to bank in small banks, it's expensive, time is lost, and we do not have quite the same cooperative competition advantages as people founding in Singapore or even in London. But then we have the regulatory stability that they don't have. I mean, we can be fairly safe that when we follow the guidelines of the financial market authorities in Switzerland and the various self-regulatory organizations, that one day in the middle of the night there won't be police coming to take you away to some basement. And I don't feel that you have quite that certainty in Singapore, even in the United States, where we've seen some quite disturbing cases of people more or less being abducted by the authorities when they're involved in this sector. Our business is not that much different than other asset managers and brokers, and we are regulated in exactly the same way. And in the case of our company, have a proven track record stretching now 3 years back, including AML audits and so forth. So it would be nice that they, but I think perhaps it's also a question of the market must be bigger before it makes sense for banks to take the costs of getting involved, because you'd have to educate staff and so forth. The vast majority of our clients are from Switzerland, Germany and Scandinavia. Now, this is not because these markets are especially strong on crypto assets. It is very much that my network extends strongly into Scandinavia, and that we are based in Switzerland, and that Germans have a tendency to consider Swiss financial services more attractive than those provided out of, I don't know, Singapore and so forth. So they will also view our company more favorable than others. And rightly so, because you have a nearby jurisdiction you can trust, and nobody will run away with 68 million of your dollars, as just happened in, was Hong Kong, but anyway. I think, I mean, the market is completely unpopulated. We are a conservative organization, so we are not venture capital funded or expanding like crazy in order to fill this vacuum, but just growing slowly. But for sure, I mean, there's as much business to be had here as you can possibly take, as long as you deliver a good service. We have several fields of business. Some of them are simply financial services, exchange activity, consulting activity in blockchain, and performing treasury services, accounting for companies, performing the OTC exchanges, sending money abroad to their subdivisions, things like that. But then we certainly also do asset management in the field of crypto, and it is also perhaps our bread and butter. And there, of course, client risk comes into play. And our clients are, of course, very concerned with counterparty risk. I mean, can you trust Bitcoin Suisse? Are they financially sound? Do they operate properly? What is our, when we manage their funds, what is our exposure to these various Bitcoin marketplaces that have proven very unstable? Will a crash at one of them take us down, and so forth? But in terms of the asset classes themselves, of which the two largest are Bitcoin and the Swiss-made Bitcoin called Ethereum or Ether, there are a number of others in which we also trade. When you get into those, you are already, per default, a high-risk profile, because these are volatile assets. On a given day, it's not unusual. You will see drops and climbs of 20%. This, of course, can happen in the stock market too, or in other asset classes. But in Bitcoin, it's and Ether, it's extreme, and it's more the rule than the exception. And we also try to consult our clients, as we must, when we sense that they are going in with a larger amount of their net assets into what is often very speculative and highly risky, because it simply could be dangerous for them. But we also cannot ignore that that over the past 7 years, in 6 of those, Bitcoin has been the world's best performing currency. And with the means that are now available, including services like those we deliver, but also other professionals and marketplaces, it's also very liquid and actually very small in terms of spread in and out, and it's just another way that you can also choose to hold cash. I mean, you have the big currencies, you have gold, and now to some extent you also have Bitcoin. Well, I shouldn't of course compare Bitcoin with gold. It's a $1 trillion market against a small $1 billion market, but it's still there as a means of holding cash. And since it is also more than a currency, but also a payment system and a FinTech technology, which is gaining adoption, then you are seeing a trend line over time. As adoption grows and supply is limited, the price is rising. And I think now, after so many years and so many crises and so many success stories, that Bitcoin is definitely here to stay as an asset class, at least until humankind finds the bad idea to push the nuclear buttons or something like that. Turn up with a few good people and a decent idea in Silicon Valley, and you will be almost carried off to a pre-made office. People will get some modest salaries from day one. Venture capitalists will be there and say, we like your idea and your business plan, and we have some trust, and here's, and it's very different. But whereas in Switzerland you basically bring your own funding always, or at least in all cases, but the most extreme. And this, of course, puts some damper on it. But on the other hand, in FinTech, we have a very friendly environment, which you can basically not make a FinTech in the US. And that's also why in the last 20 years, there's come no big FinTech out of the US. I was specifically thinking of PayPal as the last major success in that regard. If you have to penetrate that market in the US, you have to have an army of lawyers. And that's why you're seeing the reverse. You're seeing non-fintech companies moving into fintech because they have built their empire on other things. So you'd see Apple growing up on electronics, and when they are established and a huge company, the most valued company in the world, they reverse and say, actually, maybe we can use our devices as a means of payment. But from the bottom up, you probably won't succeed. What technology means in general, not just to finance, is that costs of doing things get reduced and things becomes more effective. And whenever this happens, labor gets freed up, which can be used on other things, and you will see wealth creation. That's why we don't live on subsistence anymore, but that even poor people can confidently, at least in Switzerland, assume that they will never starve to death. So fintech will make the world a richer place. And for Switzerland and for all jurisdictions, I mean, those that seize the opportunity of making business-friendly environments, and that's true in fintech as it is in the flower business, will capture the best enterprises, the best entrepreneurs, create the most unicorn companies that will benefit society, create highly paid jobs, generate revenue and wealth and prosperity. So if Switzerland can, and I think it has, provided a friendly environment for finance, or maybe in particular crypto finance, where, I mean, we even have a town accepting Bitcoin payments. I find that spectacular. And they, by the way, did so without us lobbying them to do so. Well, then they will prosper. And Switzerland has still a very good name in terms of a financial marketplace, but if you look at the numbers, this business have largely moved on, and the banking sector in Switzerland is not notably bigger than in other countries. It's still considered a banker nation, but it isn't. Crypto finance, which is the application of distributed blockchain technologies to the field of finance, has a value proposition that you can't argue with. You can do a lot of things that you couldn't do before, and at the end of the day, you can reduce transaction costs significantly, no matter what kind of transactions. You can do things smarter, safer, requiring less effort, and this again gets turned into economic gains. And you can argue whether that there should be an unmanaged money, such as Bitcoin. Not that you can prevent it, even if you want it. I mean, now it's here, and then I think we'll have to learn to deal with it. But you certainly can't argue with many of the other value propositions that come along, such as instant settlements between banks without huge server rooms of batch jobs and so forth, and people coming to an agreement simply as a decentralized group. The administration costs will be gigantic. The administration cost savings will be gigantic. You will no longer need classic notary services and stamps. Everything will be available on blockchains and so forth. This is an improvement that cannot be stopped. I mean, the automobile was not very popular in the beginning either, but it just had too big a value proposition. So even after, I think, 10 years of lobbying from the horse carriage industry and stupid rules of man walking in front of car with red flag to warn everybody that, it will prevail. And of this I am, of course, absolutely certain. And I also think that since it impacts finance, which is so much a part of our societies and lives, it will do a significant impact, more than the yellow post-it note or things like that, but really go in and be a revolution close to that of the maybe even the internet itself. Maybe that would be going too far, but certainly have a massive impact. But also because it is such a impacting topic, I don't think it will do so overnight. I think this will be a process of 20 years. Only now do you see significant numbers in terms of internet shopping. But this was predicted already in '95 that, next year we'll be shopping on the internet, and here we are 20 years later. Now it's really happening. But it takes time. It really does. And the same thing will be true for blockchain technology and for Bitcoin and for crypto tokens and assets and for these things. But in 5 years, I don't know, the sector will be maybe 100 times larger. I mean, at least going from what happened the last few years, that should seem to be not an exaggeration. We will be always having our wealth management division, but I'd like to see Bitcoin Suisse also move into some very scalable products that can reach out to millions of customers instead of this highly personal relationship we have with a few hundred clients. And essentially, at the end of the day, I would like to see Bitcoin Suisse turn into exactly what I always hoped, which is a bank, a crypto asset centric bank. The name is taken directly from my previous employer, and so is in fact logo colors and so forth, and that was Credit Suisse. I thought, yeah, let's do a Bitcoin Suisse. Now, I'm not suffering from hybrids here. I'm not saying that we are going to replace Credit Suisse on the short term, but I'm certainly hoping to replace them on the long term. I'm just kidding. It is, I think, if you have a field of business and you are subject to what is called disruption, and disruption is if you are heavily into the taxi business and along comes Uber, or you are running a hotel chain and along comes Airbnb, or you're running a bank and along comes Bitcoin, because you can really say that this is much the same thing. Those that will do well is those that adapt to the new technology, and those that will not, or maybe even turn hostile, will become a casualty of history. I'm very much in favor of this Crypto Valley initiative that is driven partly by Zug itself, but certainly also by the industry that is founded here, because we have a great incentive in seeing more companies coming here, that we can speak with a stronger voice, that when decisions are being made, people will think, well, we should think crypto finance into that, because they are providing 1,200 well-paid jobs in our relatively small community, or so what will the impact be there, and so forth. Whereas if you sit alone somewhere, nobody will listen to you. And also there are so many synergies. I mean, the dream is a small Silicon Valley for crypto finance in this region or in Switzerland in general. And that's what I would like to see happen. And then I would like to see Bitcoin Suisse being one of those companies that will ultimately succeed and stand the test of time. I'm not much of a missionary. And I do not have any specific agendas, except that here I've seen an opportunity to improve on services in the market using new technology. And that is what FinTech or whatever tech should be all about. Identify where value can be added and then ensure that value is added. I don't want to stand on conferences and try to sell my product or please buy my gadget because it will be so important for you with one other gadget in your life. I want to work with something that matters and where you can significantly improve the lives of maybe the whole world population. I mean, that's ambitious, but 80% of the world's population do not have access to banking. So they can't trade with anybody that they can't see, and thus they are poor. this is something we can do much better. And I also do not believe that money necessarily should be a tool for the privileged, but maybe it should actually just be reverted to being a tool for the public with equal participation right. Why do large banks have access to very cheap or non-interest-bearing credit from the state, whereas others do not? I mean, there are some things going on there that are a little bit suspicious, and I think crypto will help bring transparency to finance, but certainly also democratize it. And maybe most important, give an easy, greater access to it. And if I can be a small part of that, I'm working with something that is both very interesting and which matters.